Welcome to Essential Coaching Conversations with Kyle and Asim.
The real, relevant, necessary conversations to help you navigate coaching, teaching, learning, and life.
And here we are back again, this time on location. Well, one of us is on location. One of us is sitting in our basement. Kyle will explain here in a second, but episode 19, this time, just right the week after Thanksgiving, or kind of the day after Thanksgiving, actually, at the time of recording, and being sort of in the thick of a season and traveling and doing all those things, we're excited to be able to bring you some different perspectives and different locations to get our minds jogging about what we want to talk about and the conversations we want to have. If you didn't get a chance to listen to our last episode, that was our Thanksgiving week episode that came out on Thursday, November 24th. And it was just our gratitude and our way to show gratitude to all of you who make this possible and who listen and who stick with us, even as we go on our rants and maybe go on different little tangents and stuff that are not necessarily always related to the topic. But Kyle, take it away. Tell us where you are and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, sitting in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the lobby or one of the lobbies of the Park GM here on the Strip. So here for a tournament. We played in Dallas earlier in this week, and so we left on Monday, went to Dallas to play out there, and then flew out of Love Field to Vegas on Wednesday, and we got to spend Thanksgiving here with our team and some of their families, and been able to relax and unwind a little bit. Obviously there's always work to be done, but we got to go catch a show last night, which was a lot of fun with our team, and just really good opportunities to make next connections, with players and coaches and getting to spend time. Obviously I'm missing my family for Thanksgiving. I've never been away for a holiday. And so yesterday was a little tough in that regard, but here in Vegas for the weekend, we actually play, by the time y'all listen to this is on Friday. We play today, and we play 3 games out here that UNLV is hosting a tournament. So we'll play at the Thomas and Mack Center and Cox Pavilion in a 8-team double elimination bracket style tournament. So it's kind of like March in November here. Great test, great tune up, great opportunity to basically put yourselves in a tournament style situation, to kind of get a rep at that before we hit our postseason. And our, the seasons are young, and which I think that's kind of fun doing this now because there's still so much that you're trying to figure out. And not a lot of the teams have a lot of film yet. And so all these coaches that are super into scouting everybody, there's not a lot of information. And so you have to rely on your players. And I think that's been a great lesson for a lot of teams early in the year. So yeah, sitting here in Vegas, hanging out. You're in your basement in Rhode Island, 3 hours ahead of me.
That's right.
So cool that we were able to kind of make this work and make this happen. And, one thing that we'll do if you follow us on social media is we'll kind of let you know where we are as we start to travel. Because the same, you'll be hitting different spots around the country. We'll be all over kind of the South and, Southeast part of the country once we hit our conference schedule and Conference USA, and we'll let you guys know where we're going and where we're going to be. And if we happen to be in town where somebody's there listening and you can catch a game or you want to come to the game, reach out to us, let us know, come by the hotel, come meet us. We would love to continue a conversation in person and put some faces to some of the Twitter handles for some people that are out there. So by the time y'all are listening to this, I'll be long gone from Vegas, but keep up with us on social, and we'll kind of help you keep up with where we're bouncing around to, because that's another great thing about this medium is it allows us to make more connections and, continue those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's the cool part about kind of what we do for a living too, outside of essential coaching and outside of playmakers, is like our jobs take us all over the place, and being able to connect with people in person, especially after a few years of not being able to do that. Like you said, putting faces to Twitter handles and just really like getting to know the people who in some way or in some fashion are impacted by the work that we do. I mean, that's the mission we're on, right? To create the most deeply connected coaching community in the world. So that just is a part of that mission. And so we're hopeful that we do get to meet you all and come to a game. be a part of what we got going on, and we'd love to support you as well in any way that we can. Um, as this episode goes out, it'll be the first week of December, and December is a kind of an interesting time, I think, for everyone. I mean, obviously, like there's a lot of holidays in December. There's a lot of excitement because we're sort of maybe getting into conference play for some people, or you're traveling or you're doing all of these things. But I think December holds a pretty different meaning for you, Kyle, and sort of for me by proxy because of our connection. And so one of the things, then you'll see that on the title of this episode, but this is really going to be a very like Kyle centric episode in terms of storytelling and sort of why December is a big month for Kyle, for his family, for his friends, and sort of how that's been adopted and adapted into what we do at Essential Coaching, and how it sort of serves to feed the mission that we're on as well. And so, Kyle, I'm going to take a back seat, obviously, on this one, but I'll lob you a few questions, and we're obviously we'll have a conversation. But I think the important thing for listeners to keep in mind is that this is something that has been going on. Kyle, how long is it? 5-7 years, something like that.
Well, as far as this part goes, 4. This will be the 4th annual.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just kind of jump in and
go for it.
Real quickly before that, like we're going to talk about these challenges, and so we issued one last week with our Thanksgiving episode, the hashtag EC challenge, and we'll sort of update these as we go. But the idea last week, again, if you haven't listened, please go back and listen to that. And what we want to do is just continue to use kind of a perpetual season of gratefulness and gratitude and thankfulness of telling the people in our lives that have had great conversations with us that have impacted us along the way. And those might be professionally, personally, mentally, spiritually, whatever they are. And just taking a moment to thank those that have, been able to impact us and ask us those real relevant, necessary questions and rocka in our lives and help us continue to grow. And so, we've asked people to, tag people on Twitter, reach out to them, let them know, and then let us know, who has sort of impacted you there. And so with that in mind, and then moving forward into December, just a story from my past. I was in the band in high school and in college, and I was a drummer. And my eighth grade year, I think it was. This was back in 1999. We went down to a high school playoff game in South Louisiana and got back super late, 3 a.m, something like that. I think it was like a 5-hour or so bus ride to go from South Louisiana back up to North Louisiana. And so we're all going home middle of the night, and, weather and stuff's not real great, late November, and it's kind of cold and icy. And I got woken up by my mom that morning, and she let me know that one of my best friends was in an accident. And he, along with one other guy who was driving him home, Mark David was my friend. They were hit by a drunk driver going through a really, really bad curve, just about a mile or so from my house, heading home. This guy, Josh, was taking Mark David home, and a drunk driver crossed the center line, hit him head on, and they had to bring in the chopper, jaws of life, cut him out of the car. Josh, who was driving, fortunately survived the accident, but he broke both of his legs. Femurs were snapped. He's got titanium rods in his legs and had to kind of learn how to walk all over again. And just every year, so I think about him, and the testament and the strength that he's got to continue moving on. But unfortunately for Mark David, he was wearing a seatbelt and relatively physically was okay. But he hit his head really hard on the window and lost oxygen, coded a few times on the way to the hospital in the helicopter. And they found out that he had a lot of bruising and swelling on his brain. And that was on a early Saturday morning. Went to the hospital Saturday and were relatively hopeful. But by Sunday, we all went to church, and we were told that, basically we needed to go to the hospital and say our goodbyes, that they had made the decision to take him off of life support because there was no quality of life there. And, nobody out there knows who Mark David is, but he was an incredible human being, especially for being 14 years old. He had lived a lot of life. He was extremely smart. He had skipped a grade in elementary school. We grew up going to church together. Like I said, we were drummers together. His parents were our Sunday school teachers, and they were just really incredible people. And Mark David was an only child, which doesn't necessarily make that better or worse, but it's your only child right at Christmas time, and you lose them. And I just think about, especially now that I'm a parent, you've already got presents under the tree for your kid, and you just think that everything's going to be okay. And unfortunately, that was a very, very tragic accident and incident, and something that seems so senseless, then and now, being hit by a drunk driver. And of course the driver, sprains his ankle and basically walks away and was relatively fine. And so anyway, that was obviously a very, very difficult and tragic time, and a very important moment in my life, because I was about 14 years old, and you're going through some things, and you're trying to question, you wonder like why bad things are allowed to happen. And Mark David's parents they're some of the strongest people I've ever known. They went and found the young man that hit and killed their son, and they essentially forgave him and prayed with him. And they kind of, again, if you're spiritual or not, they basically just kind of left it up to what they believed in. And I just thought that was an extremely strong, act of just commitment to what you believe in. It's not something I don't know if I could ever do. But I just remember thinking like, man, if they can do that, as parents, then like me as the friend, I need to be able to kind of figure out how I'm going to handle this and move on. And we wanted to find a way to honor him. And I played basketball then as well. And I had to play in a JV game on Monday, and obviously was like a wreck and didn't want to play, but my parents kind of talked me into it and was like, no, get out, try to enjoy yourself. And, that's what he would want. And it felt kind of wrong to kind of try to move on that fast, but at the same time, you kind of understand what they're saying. And we wanted to find a way to honor him. And so Mark David always wore Chuck Taylors. I'm sure most people out there are familiar with what Chucks are, shoes. And so all of us, we went out and we bought Chuck Taylors, and we wore them. And I had never really liked them. I never thought they were very comfortable, growing up. I didn't necessarily want to wear them, but, we all went out and we bought a pair and we wore them for however long. And that was our way of kind of remembering him and continuing to keep his memory alive in us. And so fast forward, years down the road, I start coaching. And so the accident was on December 4th. He passed away on December 5th. And so every year when that date rolled around, whatever game we might have around December 4th or December 5th, I always coached in a full-on suit, but I would wear Chuck Taylors with my suit. And that was my way of honoring and remembering him on the anniversary of his death and that tragic accident. And of course, it always looked a little goofy wearing a coat and tie, wearing, green Chuck Taylors. And so people would ask, like, why are you wearing those? And it gave me an opportunity to tell not just that story, but tell his story. And what a remarkable young man that he was, and the work that he did in our community. And we would have this penny drive every year at school. I'm sorry, at church and like Vacation Bible School. And he was known as the penny king. He always raised the most money, and he just had a very selfless heart. And, so that was another way that we, just sort of remembered him and continuing his legacy by, every time I see a penny, I think of Mark David and I pick it up and I'm like, all right, that goes in the piggy bank. And then I turn mine in every summer. But we wanted to do something each year to remember him. And so I would wear Chuck Taylors on that date. People would ask me the story. I would get an opportunity to kind of share that and, let everybody know, like, hey, if you're ever in a bind, I'm not against somebody having a good time and going out to drink or, whatever. I don't personally drink. I've never really been into the idea. I've never liked it. But that was also kind of like my decision, and my commitment was like, if I don't ever drink, then I can't get behind the wheel. And I'm basically removing that variable from ever having that happen to somebody again. And so I instantly became the popular guy in college because I was the designated driver. And I was invited to go everywhere because, I wanted to take care of my friends. I wanted to get everybody home safely. And, I basically took that job very seriously. Like I don't ever want anybody to have to go through something like that again. And, if you're at a party and you're running out of alcohol and somebody's like, hey, I'll go pick some up. And that's the exact scenario in which Josh and Mark David were hit, is that the guy was drunk and they ran out of booze and he wanted to go find some more somewhere else. And again, it just seems senseless. and totally avoidable. There's some things in life that we can't avoid. To me, this is 100% controllable and something that you can do about it. And so this is my sort of attempt, I guess you could say, at trying to do something about it, and hope that, you can keep one less person, one less family, one less loved one from having to, one less friend from having to, experience something like this. And if we can avoid some tragedy in the world, then let's do it, right? Let's do something about it. So anyway, if years go by, I do that. And then 4 years ago, we had already met, right? And I had just left coaching. I had coached my 2 years at Simsboro and had walked away and was just teaching, and December rolled around and I was like, I can't, I'm not coaching. And
the kids aren't going to care whether you're wearing Chucks in the classroom or not, right?
Right.
It's not
like
a
that's
story
not
to be able to be told. Yeah.
That's not going to stand out necessarily. And so I think I had texted you about it and you were like,
Mhm.
bro, I got you. Like, I'll wear Chucks. Like I'll do this in your place. And which was obviously like very touching for me. And I was like, okay, great. Like, shoot me a picture of it. That would be awesome. Like, I'll show his parents, that we're doing this. And that was a really, really cool, like, gesture by you to sort of stand in for me. And I want to say this was your idea, where it was like, hey, I'll see if I can get our assistants to do it.
I think we had talked about, like, you had mentioned the story and how it was almost a little bit like even more sad because you weren't going to be able to do it. And I
Right.
think it was, I remember vaguely you sending like a note, like on the notes app on your phone. I think you had
Yeah.
written a note of like something to post on social media. You're like, and at this point, we didn't have a couple thousand followers each. I think we were like in this, the high hundreds, maybe. And you were like, I don't know if anybody's going to see this, but let's see what happens. And yeah, like it struck me as like, not just the right thing to do, but like if you aren't able to do it, then that's what a community's for. Right. And so not to take away from the story itself, but I think it's important for people to know how hard that was for you, having stepped away of, hey, I don't get to do this anymore. And it's like, I want to tell this story, and this story needs to be continued to be told, but I can't be the one that does it anymore because I don't have this specific job where people would ask me about it, or where like it'll be on display. And I think that's something that, at a larger point, like coaches, we always say how like we're on display and body language screams and like all of these coach speaky things. But think about the other side of that and what you can use that display for. And I think this is like case in point of using it for a very positive thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And again, like, selfishly, I was dealing with some things because like my identity had basically been stripped from me, because I've been Coach K my entire life, and now people are trying to call me Mr. Kavanaugh, and that just makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit because I wasn't coaching. And so then it kind of like tacked on, like, man, not only am I getting to do this, but this was the way I shared the story and I shared this memory. And this was like the beginning of, like, we don't even think we had we didn't have a central coaching going at this time. Like, right? It was just,
no, it was just the two of us. It was literally
right.
like, I don't even think we had started a group chat with Ryan Smith yet.
No, like it was just us two. And so it was you taking, and again, if you've heard us talk and you're in, talk about leadership and influence, like you were the first follower, so which means you're the leader. Like you took this and ran with it and put it out there. And it was just kind of like, hey, let's throw it out there. And the idea is like, yeah, if one person sees this, like if one person right now hears this podcast and gets something out of this, then it's totally worth the time and the effort to do it. And like, to my surprise, amazingly, I just started texting, coaches that I knew and other people. I'm like, hey, look, you guys know I've gotten out of the business. I'm not doing this anymore. If you happen to have a pair of Chucks, or can go get some, or, would you be willing to wear them during this week on a game day, and, take a picture of it, send it to me, and just kind of let me know you were thinking of it. And kind of to my surprise, like we started this around Thanksgiving, I think, like the week of Thanksgiving, and spreading the word. And we got a ton of commitments out of it. And people started tagging me on Twitter. They started emailing, they started texting me pictures and just let me know that they kind of had our back with this. And it kind of took off and it spread. And kind of to my surprise, like it spread fast and it spread far and wide. And by the end of that week, we had people in Sweden, England, different parts of Europe. We had somebody in Australia. We had people in like 24, I think it was about 24 states. We had people in Canada that just organically were seeing this and they were spread it. And even if somebody was like, well, I don't have Chucks, but I got a buddy who does, I'll let them know. Or I'll tell like, hey, we had a couple staffs that were like, we as a staff are going to do it, but I'll also reach out to who we're going to play and we'll see if they can wear some Chucks and we'll get a picture together with that staff. And it was just extremely touching and moving to see, like, again, nobody knows who Mark David is, but there's likely somebody that that has been affected by a drunk driving incident in some form or fashion, or it's something that you as coaches preach to your players, and being careful about that. And this was just, again, it was just a way for us to honor Mark David's memory and hopefully keep something like this from tragically happening again. And, one of our original EC members, Ryan Kimball, who's at Francis Scott Key in Maryland,
Maryland. Yeah.
We didn't even know Ryan at the time, but like he sees it on Twitter. He sends a picture. He and I start to DM back and forth, text back and forth. The next thing I know, like when we get ready to start Essential Coaching, Ryan's one of our first EC members. Jason Payne, who's in Canada, he was one of the first ones to jump in on this. And again, I don't know these people from anywhere, but people that we have now had a relationship
from
with.
Detroit, right? Didn't JP and Shane Lawal and them? They did it as a staff.
Yeah,
we didn't know. You didn't know any of these people. Obviously, I didn't know any of these people. Right. And it just shows you, like, with all the crap that's going on with social media right now, this is how it can be used for good. Right. These 100%. People, like, honestly, Ryan Kimball, Joya Puryear, and Jason Payne, like, they would never know each other. Right. They would have no idea who each other is, except this happened and then EC happened. And that's how you build that community. Right. 100%. And it's about making that next connection over something that's a shared interest.
So that's us growing this deeply. And I think part of that experience was us and a part of our evolution in crafting our mission statement over something like that. Like, hey, we can use social media to connect with people that we would otherwise never know existed over something common. And again, it was very, very great. And there are people that I DM with still on Twitter that I might not necessarily talk to much during the year, but this would be the 4th annual which I hadn't even got. I'm just kind of rambling, trying to get my thoughts together to get through this. So you have to kind of forgive me.
We haven't even talked about the actual challenge yet. It's more just the background of the story. Yeah.
Right. So the hashtag Chucks Challenge. So Chucks for MDC. So Chucks for Mark David Crosby. You'll see the hashtag popped up. And again, there are people that I don't necessarily have a relationship or talk to, but they reach out around this time and they're like, yo, I'm in again. Like, or I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I appreciate it. And again, it's just neat to see the willingness for people to jump into something. And again, they might know somebody, they might have dealt with this, or they're just kind of hoping and praying that they never have to deal with something like this. And it's a chance, it's an opportunity, it's a connection point for you to potentially have a conversation with your team, your players, your students. Like, even when I was teaching 7th grade, I told this story, and I'm hoping to God that my 7th graders are not drinking and driving, and they're not even able to do that yet. But at some point they will be. Like, they're going to be faced with a choice, and not that long into the future, they will have to make a decision, and not necessarily them getting behind the wheel and making a decision, but maybe stopping somebody, taking the keys from somebody, calling them, helping them. Call your parents. Like, they might be pissed at you about this and that, but that's much better than the alternative of having to go down this other path. And so it's just again, I think one thing that you and I are pretty decent at are trying to find opportunities, moments, stories to help teach and reinforce lessons that don't come off as like judgmental or preachy
or experty type things, right? Like, we're not the experts in the room.
No. And this is just another way to kind of say, like, okay, hey, this is obviously we don't want to drink and drive at all, but especially when you get around like holiday season and party time and everybody's kind of cutting loose and they're trying to enjoying or celebrating their year and you're around family and friends that maybe you don't get to see for a while, the likelihood of these kinds of things tend to grow up around this time of year. So it also becomes just a kind of a poignant and good time to talk about it. Whereas obviously this is another perpetual challenge. Like we want you to always kind of have this in the back of your mind. But so yeah, to the point of the episodes, I guess, to get the challenge out there is, that first week of December is kind of how it started. But, we had a lot of people who said, oh, I don't have any Chucks. Let me get some, but they're going to be here in a month or a week, or, we don't play this week, but we'll play next week. Can I do it then? And the answer is obviously yes. Like do it whenever you can. Wear them for the whole month. Like we don't really care about that part. It's just you getting out there and spreading the message. And if you wear a full-on suit like I do or not, like you're wearing Chuck Taylors during a game, odds are people are going to ask you, hey, why are you wearing that? And then you get an opportunity to then spread Mark David's story, which again is, for me and his friend, it's sort of my hope to keep the memory of my friend alive and know that like his parents know that people are thinking about their son and like he didn't die in vain and that he might be continuing to help other people and serve people even 20 plus years after he's passed away. And to me, that is the extremely like powerful part of this is that, once a year, I get to have a touch point and a connection with his parents and they see how like amazing and touched they are that people that they're never going to know or see or understand even maybe what Twitter and social media is, that, their son is still living through everybody who's a part of this. And so the challenge itself is basically, when you guys have a game, again, that week of that day, or even throughout the month, throw on a pair of Chucks, coach in it, just take a picture, your staff, reach out to the opposing team, and shoot us a picture of it. And I like to take all these pictures and throw them into a photo album and collage them together so I can share them. And again, I think this would be the 4th annual year that we've done this, and we've always just done it through sort of our Twitter followers, and naturally, like with a podcast platform now, this is an opportunity to hopefully reach. I mean, we're in, we've been listened to in like 35 states and 30 countries, and so the hope is here that this will continue to spread this message and this story, and potentially do some even more good. So if you're still hanging in here listening to me ramble all this time, like we certainly would appreciate you taking the time to think about jumping into this. And if somebody out there just like flat out can't afford a pair of Chuck Taylors, DM me, holler at me. I'll get you a pair of Chuck Taylors. Like I'll figure out a way to get you some.
Yeah, we can make that happen. We'll cost should
happen.
not be a reason not to be able to do it.
Right. And I've even had people like, hey, I don't have Chucks, but I've got like knockoff Chucks or like these Vans. And it's like, yeah, man, like that's fine. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be Chucks. If you're telling the story and you're doing it sort of in memory of that and honor of that, then do what you've got to do to be involved. We would much rather you jump in at any way you can, as opposed to saying, oh, well, I don't have a pair of Chucks, so I'm not going to do it. However, you can jump in and be a part of this. Like we obviously certainly appreciate it, but if you really want a pair of Chucks and you just can't get it, like holler at us and we'll do what we can to try to help you out there. And if you've got endorsement deals, if you're a college coach out there and you're like, well, I've got to wear Adidas or I've got to wear Nike or I have to wear Under Armour or whatever. If you want to throw on a pair of Chucks at a practice or just, walk around in them at the office that day, or even if you're not a coach and you're a teacher, and you want to wear them on campus, feel free to jump in that way too.
So little known fact, Nike owns the Chuck Taylor brand. So all those Nike coaches out there, you have really no excuse. You're still wearing Nike. It just doesn't have a swoosh.
That's true. Very good point. Yeah,
so,
we're in Adidas school, so I have to think about that. But again,
maybe Adidas will make an exception once they hear the story. I think we should send this podcast to. I have a friend who works at Adidas. I can send it to him.
Yeah, well, let's send it to him and see if maybe they can help. Maybe they'll give us a 1-day pass.
Maybe.
But again, like even if it's just around the office, or if you throw them on, go to the store, take a picture. Like it doesn't those particular details are not the super important part. The
venue doesn't matter. It's like the reason to do it. I even think to take it a step further, and Kyle, I think it takes tremendous strength for you to share that story so publicly. And for all the people out there who are listening, like it is a pretty seminal story in that it means more than just the memory of somebody's friend, right? It's taken on a new life to give life to that person and to say like this person's memory matters, but it could be anybody. It just happened to be them. Um, and I think, as we go forward, even having teams do it, right? It's not just the coaches, but like on that particular game day, you know how like especially in high school athletics, I don't think this happens so much in college athletics, but especially in high school athletics, teams decide what to wear, right? On a game day, they're going to dress up, they're going to wear their uniforms, they're going to wear whatever, right, to school. Have this be the thing that they wear, right? If kids have Chucks, share this podcast with them, give them something to hold on to, because we always talk about, hey, make good decisions, right? On that Friday night after the game, hey, make good decisions, like going into the holidays, make good decisions. This is a really, really sticky way and a really, really meaningful way to help our players, our youth, people who are highly influenced and very like, what's the word? I can't remember the word I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean. Like it's an opportunity to grow their understanding of the consequences of actions. And to say, no, you know what? Like, I'm not going to go to that party. I'm not going to go do that activity that I shouldn't be doing anyway. And I'm going to make the next best decision. And so ultimately for us, that's what we want everyone to be able to do, like that we are able to impact on a daily basis. And this is no different. I think it just falls in line with everything else. And so being able to sort of spread that message in a very non-confrontational way and say, hey, as a team, we support this endeavor. Chucks for MDC, the Chucks Challenge, being able to get people on board. So like, as Kyle said, like we can prevent something that's a horribly tragic thing. And just raise awareness to the fact that this, it's happening all over the world. And it's just something that honestly is a choice and that could be prevented. And this is just one small way of doing that.
Yeah, it comes back to the same foundational things that you and I talk about in EC all the time. What is the next best decision that I can make right now? And what is your character in these situations? What is the consistency or the repeatability of that particular positive habit? And so for me, and my character in this situation is just to avoid it altogether, right? Like I'm not going to put myself in that situation. And I get it, it's not this judgy, judgmental, preachy type of thing. Like, oh, if you put yourself in this situation, you're a terrible human being or anything like that. That's not the case. But it's about when you are in a situation and you are faced with a choice, what is the next best decision that I can make? And that next best decision that we talk about a lot of times are not that important, especially when it comes to like we're playing a game. Now, they might impact winning or losing. Like the next best decision right now is to jump to the ball on this pass. The next best decision is to sprint back after a rebound. The next best decision is to communicate this screen. The next best decision is to, make the right read coming off of this curl cut and all that. And those are obviously important for what we love to do. But this particular next best decision might literally be life and death and impact somebody's life, for their eternity. And not that we want tragic things to happen, but it's like, okay, well, now we're forced with a decision. We can just sort of let this tragic thing sort of fleet into the wind and not do anything about it. Or now we've got an opportunity to get some good out of something tragic that ultimately should have never happened, but it did. Right. So again, I like how you kind of take this back to the coaching perspective of these things. Like if we're going to sit here and talk about it, then let's be about it. If we're going to talk about the controllables, control what you can control, attitude, effort, choices that you make. It's not about what happens to you. It's how you respond. Like, well, okay, well, let's do this in a real life context. Let's do those things in a situation that might quite literally be a case of life and death, as opposed to just, did you read your blocking assignments correctly? Or did you, watch the plays and fast scout, or, did you show up to practice on time, or like all those other little things that seem so silly and so like just dumb all of a sudden when you start thinking about things like this in the greater context. It's also a great story and lesson in perspective, I think, to really focus on, what truly does matter. And the next time that one of your players or a student shows up 30 seconds late and you've got an opportunity to hammer them, maybe it's just, hey, I'm glad you're here. You were 2 minutes late. I got worried. Thanks for, I'm just glad that you made it safely. And that was something that I probably learned this from you in the classroom, when kids are tardy and you want to get mad at them, that the only thing I would say when a kid walked in late was like, glad you're here. And it just sort of disarms them. And guess what? Now they know that I care. And so they're going to do everything they can to not be late again. And it's a way to go about something maybe a little bit differently that is against the grain of sort of our classical norms and how we handle certain things. And again, so I appreciate everybody kind of listening to me bumble and stumble through this. I've told this story 1,000 times over the last 23 years, and it doesn't really get any easier. Trying to collect my thoughts to sort of lay all this out there. So if some of it is a little clunky, or I'm umming a lot, or I'm repeating myself, that's why. But I appreciate y'all kind of bearing with me and sticking through this and just taking the time to listen to this. And whether you jump into the challenge or not, at least it's on your mind. And so I feel like I've done my job to make that next connection. And so again, for the challenge itself, slap on a pair of Chucks, take a picture of it, shoot it to either myself or Asim or our EC account. We'll have all these in the show notes. You can DM us. You can email us, admin@essential-coaching.net. Get us these pictures and let us know that you're a part of it and you're thinking of it and you're working on it. And let us know, hey, if you're committed to doing it, you've got this big tournament January 1st and you want to wait to do it then. That's awesome. Like we'll be here for it. And we'll sort of touch on this each episode in December to kind of hopefully keep it going. And we'll let you know, how it's going. We'll keep up with some progress on it. But it's hashtag Chucks #4 MDC. So Chucks for MDC and hashtag Chucks Challenge. So either one of those is fine. You'll see me posting about this all throughout the month of December. And, I'll probably be wearing mine around the office and taking some pictures, different locations. And as we're traveling, actually, I think we're at home most of December, but we've got a couple of road trips. And so I'll be sharing my Chucks on our journey. And I know Asim will have his on for some games during December.
We have 3 games in December, so I'll be wearing them for all 3 of those.
Yeah. So, if you see that, feel free to obviously share that story with those that are around you. And we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and especially if you're willing to take an active part in it, just know that you potentially could be saving a life, and again, if it's just one person that we get to maybe in the back of their mind, this is what I tell my kids, like kids that I taught 10, 15 years ago. I was like, again, you're not in that situation right now, but if 5, 10, 15 years from now, you're in this situation and Coach K sitting on his desk with these big green Chucks, flashes in the back of your mind, and that gets you to stop and think, hey, what is my next best decision? Then this conversation right here was totally worth it. It's worth putting the content away for a minute. We can talk about photosynthesis later. Let's talk about something that might actually impact you for the rest of your life. And the great thing is that every time you tell that story, even to kids all the way down in 7th grade, that they get the gravity of it, and they touch on it and they respect it. And I still run into some students from time to time who will tell me, hey, Coach, it's December. I got my Chucks. And they might be fully grown with a job, and they might be working at a law office, or they're an accountant, or they're a doctor, or they work in business somewhere. And they're like, I remember you telling me that story. I'm going to have my Chucks on. And that just lets me know that, all right, I've done some good in the world.